Welcome again to another edition of famous World War II airfields as they were during the war and as they are now in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This time we look at the then RAF Thruxton, now EGHO Thruxton, and its role in the famous raid to steal Hitler's Wurzburg radar at Bruneval on a French east coast cliff top, the operation being codenamed Operation Biting. Following photo reconnaissance, assistance from the French resistance, and months of preparation and training, 12 Armstrong Whitworth Whitley bombers took off from RAF Thruxton in the UK in February 1942, not with bombs but with 120 paratroopers and an expert radio technician on a top-secret surprise combined operations mission to steal vital components of the Nazi Wurzburg radar installed on a cliff top near Bruneval on the French east coast. Despite the snow, the strong Nazi defence, and some paratroopers dropped too far away, there were only a few casualties and the men and the radar were successfully evacuated by the Royal Navy back to the UK. The Bruneval raid was very important because 1. Its success was a great morale booster for the British and the Allies. 2. It encouraged further expansion of the then newly formed paratroopers. 3. British bomber losses were high at the time because of the radar, and scientific work on it enabled the later jamming of the radar and improvements to British radar. 4. British radar development was moved to safer locations inland to discourage reprisal raids. And 5. The Nazis further protected other radar sites with rings of barbed wire, which only served to make them more identifiable targets during the war. Here's RAF Thruxton, opened in 1941 and was used during World War II by both the RAF and the US Air Force, mainly as a combat fighter airfield. Also, gliders used in the D-Day Normandy landings took off from RAF Thruxton. However, its main fame is probably to do with its role in the Bruneval raid, codenamed Operation Biting, because it was from RAF Thruxton that the 12 Armstrong Whitworth Whitley bomber aircraft took off in February 1942 with 120 paratroopers on board. Here's EGHO Thruxton as it is in the sim. It is used now for general aviation training and flying, and also as a motorbike and car racing track around the line of the old wartime perimeter road. The wartime control tower is still in use, and you can see it coming up under the left-hand wingtip of the aircraft. A few other flyers in the distance there on the horizon. Turning now towards Bruneval gives us another view of the airfield. It's a pretty typical layout with criss-cross runways and a perimeter road. Many other airfields had only a grass field without any defined runways. Here we see the location of Bruneval. The radar was on a 300-foot high cliff overlooking the English Channel. Thruxton airfield is about halfway between London and Bristol. In this diagram of the raid you can see where most of the paratroopers landed after jumping from the Whitleys, about 600 feet above ground level. The English names are just part of the codes used during the raid. The Nelson group were dropped inaccurately but still managed to do their job. The force with the radar were evacuated by the Royal Navy at Stella Maris. There was continual fighting during the entire raid. Here is a more realistic depiction of the raid with a bit more information. And this is an old painting of the raid which I really like. Next is the famous reconnaissance photo skillfully taken at low level and high speed from a Spitfire by squadron leader Archie Hill. It shows the old mansion, which is now gone, and the Wurzburg radar in front of and to the left of the mansion. And here we are now in the sim over Fee Camp, which is the point on the French coast which the raiding aircraft aimed for after leaving RAF Thruxton. It is not far along the coast east of Bruneval. The raid was at night time and snow covered the ground, but I cannot replicate that in the sim because we would not be able to see a thing. The aircraft came from the UK from that direction over the English Channel. And here we are approaching the radar site. The main paratrooper drop zone was in those yellow fields coming up now to the left of the aircraft. They jumped at only 600 feet above ground level, would you believe, about what we are at now in the sim. The Nazi accommodation was in the buildings below the aircraft. The remains of the old mansion and radar site, unfortunately shown as buildings in the sim, are coming up under the aircraft now, and the evacuation beach is in the valley just ahead of the aircraft. Some of the paratroopers were dropped on the far side of the valley and, although dropped inaccurately, managed to make it to the beach just in time to join the fight and to enable the evacuation. To the left of the aircraft now you can see the drop zone, the radar site and the evacuation beach. Drop zone under the aircraft now. Radar site in front of the aircraft nose. By the way, the oil terminal and the long dike to park oil tankers were not there in World War II. They were built in the late 60s, early 70s when the Suez Canal was closed because of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And because tankers had to then go the long way around the Cape of Good Hope, they needed to be bigger to be profitable, but they could not fit in some existing ports, and so new ports like this one were built. But the Suez Canal soon opened and the port was largely redundant. It was later planned for gas distribution from the port, but that too was abandoned, so the port has always been greatly underutilised. There's the oil terminal to the right, evacuation beach straight ahead, and radar site on the cliff top to the left. There is now a large memorial to the raid down at the evacuation beach. The memorial's just under the right wing now. another view, evacuation beach behind, radar site on top of the cliff top to the right, and drop zone at the right hand side. And we will land on the drop zone to finish the flight. So hope you all enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me again, and please click to subscribe if you would like to see more like this. Cheers.